Hello, my name is Diana Thomas, and I'm a professor of mathematics at the United States Military Academy. I'm also one of 2 Dean's Fellows for remote teaching. Like many other colleges, when we went on spring break last March, our cadets did not return, and they continued their courses remotely. We took that opportunity to survey cadets and faculty so we can best understand their experiences and revise how we do remote teaching. Over the summer, a group of us worked together to compile that information. We also interviewed cadets and faculty through focus groups. We interviewed 24 different colleges that were experts in online teaching, administrators, faculty members, and experts in pedagogy. A review of the literature was performed where we looked at best practices for online teaching and online learning. We also talked to faculty members and department heads to understand what their needs were. This information was compiled together in a report and rolled up into 12 recommendations. Recommendation number 1 states that materials should be delivered in a blend of asynchronous and synchronous methods. Synchronous methods require students to meet together with their professor at a specified time. When they do this solely, when it's solely done, cadets stated in the surveys that they felt that they had difficulty paying attention because they were staring at the screen for such a long time. On the other hand, if all the material was delivered asynchronously in the format of videos or worksheets or reading, cadets felt a sense of isolation and out of touch. We also drew upon the literature and the interviews from other colleges that stated that the best practices they had formulated over time was a blend of asynchronous and synchronous methods. Recommendation number 2 is about a practice called good digital packaging. When we are online, unlike a classroom, materials can be delivered in all different locations. Homework can be assigned on a different link, while the worksheets are on a learning management system, and videos might be on YouTube. That starts to get confusing. One of the recommendations made by cadets is that we deliver material through a calendar invite with all links housed in that calendar invite, with due dates and what is due and expected in that calendar invite. That's an example of good digital packaging because now the student knows what's expected of them and where to find materials all in one spot. Some of the colleges we spoke to had reduced the number of platforms they used to 1, while other colleges had multiple different platforms. However, in all of them, they did speak to us about the idea and concept of good digital packaging to make it less confusing and chaotic for the user. The third recommendation is for instructors. Unlike face-to-face teaching, remote instruction is not natural, and because of that, we have many questions. For example, how long can I make my video so I ensure my students actually watch it? Another example is, how do I get my students to interact when we are in synchronous time? There are best practices that exist, but these best practices need to be listed on a website that people can easily navigate, that's well organized, so the questions can be answered quickly for the instructor when the time is necessary. This is our third recommendation. Put those best practices up with the information required so people can go find that information and use them in their classrooms. Recommendation number 4 was something we spent quite a bit of time on. Academic integrity is compromised in the remote environment if we are giving traditional classroom assessments as we do in a face-to-face environment. What we found is that the research indicated that the classroom assessments need to be redesigned and improved so that they improve cadet learning while at the same time minimizing the underlying motivation for committing honor violations. We found that signing a statement right before you take an assessment reminds students that they should be honest while taking that assessment, and it improves academic integrity. We also found that frequent and institution-wide education and discussion that's continual during the semester is very important so that students understand what constitutes academic dishonesty and why it is wrong. And it actually leads to reduced academic dishonesty. Finally, we also found that giving more frequent low-stakes
that means lower in point total assessments, in contrast to a midterm and a final, a high stakes and high pressure assessment actually improves learning and retention and reduces incidence of academic dishonesty. We were also guided to provide authentic assessments. Examples of authentic assessments are posting a tweet about what you learned during the week, with extra credit if people actually like your tweet, versus giving a quiz that's multiple choice and can be looked up on Google. Or use the internet instead of prohibit students from using the internet. For example, have them scour the internet and find gaps in content, and have them actually contribute that content by filling those gaps. Finally, culminating experiences like a final exam that's traditional in class can be re-examined and revisited by looking at authentic assessments that are still providing that culminating experience. For example, students can compile an entire portfolio of all the assessments they took during the semester with an executive summary at the front summarizing the content for the semester, highlighting what content topics they struggled with and how they addressed them, and what content they actually mastered well and why they mastered it well.
Recommendation number 5 is about educating faculty and students about how to do best in the remote environment. Some plan needs to be in place through workshops, newsletters, and individual targeted training so that people know that the environments are different and there are best practices of how material is consumed and delivered in the remote environment. Recommendation number 6 piggybacks off of recommendation number 5. Remote teaching and remote learning are not obvious, and the right talent needs to be in place to help. Instructional design teams and the right IT needs to be in place to support the remote environment. Recommendation number 7 has to do with recording classes. Recording classes is phenomenal because students can go back and look at material, and faculty can also go back and look at material. I know I said what I said because it's there on the recorded classroom. However, in both cases, this needs to be protected. Students need to be protected that their identity is not revealed to the public, and faculty needed to be protected so that bits and pieces of their material are not put out into the public domain without permission. In both cases, a policy needs to be put in place to protect both students and faculty. Recommendation number 8 has to do with the documentation of academic work, or DAW. We have something in place at the United States Military Academy which teaches our cadets how to document their work. This work traditionally has been in hard copy, in the form of paper submissions. Now that work is online, that material needs to have it accounted for by a new set of policies in the documentation of academic work so that cadets have a uniform format on how to submit a DAW for their work online. Recommendation number 9 should not be taken lightly. Because the computer allows us to stay away from the walls of our office and extend the day, many faculty found that their days had been extended past duty hours. Cadets also found that they were working a lot longer because they could. Expectations of when faculty will be available and when cadets can expect to reach them should be set in writing so that both parties know what is expected on both sides. Recommendation number 10 has to do with hard copy of textbooks. So it might seem that if you're taking an online course, having everything as electronic would be great, an electronic textbook, for example. In the surveys, especially the free-form written responses, we were surprised to find cadets actually wanted hard copies of their textbook. They found it difficult to stare at the screen all day long, and they also found it difficult to look up material constantly that was online. And so we recommend, as per their recommendations, that all cadets be supplied with hard copies of their textbook. Recommendation number 11 has to do with the fact that while it might be easy to walk over to a different building and find tutoring services or the librarian, that might be difficult in a remote environment. Our support services have already put together programs that are integrated online well, And so we recommend that that continues and that also be recognized as something that's very valuable and important for student learning. Recommendation number 12 takes the experiences and challenges we've had with remote teaching over the spring and summer to bounce forward. What we have learned is that cadets and faculty do not need to be at the United States Military Academy to learn. In fact, cadets could be traveling abroad and still take their courses remotely and graduate on time at the United States Military Academy. Thinking forward, it's possible that we could share courses among service academies, or with ROTC programs, or the Army at large. The technology we have today is exciting and we've learned quite a bit about them, but they're advancing rapidly, and who knows what the future will bring. So what recommendation number 12 is to continue exploring those possibilities and the potential to bounce forward.